Pranam Partho. So welcome to the new podcast on Sanatan Dharma, where we're going to discuss karma.
Thank you.
Okay, Partho. So my question is that can you please help me understand what is karma and how does it impact our day-to-day lives? Because and if I can start with one sub question, which is that let's say I'm doing something now. Is it because of the karma I would have done earlier, or am I accumulating karma, the effect of which I'll get later? How do I distinguish it, or can I know at all? So let's start with the basics. What is karma?
Very difficult to tell you what.
Yes.
I mean,
Okay.
there are so many theories about karma, so many different interpretations about karma, even within Sanatan Dharma or within Buddhism. Lots of different interpretations about karma. So to make this conversation more meaningful, I'll have to share what I personally feel and I have processed within myself.
Sure.
Rather than talking about theories of karma that anyone can read from anywhere.
Yeah.
So for me, the most important aspect of karma is its causal aspect, cause and effect. So if I do something, whatever it is, if I do something that will have an effect, whatever I do, my action will be the cause of some effect. It's as simple as that. A deeper layer to it, and you just indicated that through your question, a deeper layer to it would be what I have done as the cause of an effect itself would be an effect of some other cause. So this whole universe, therefore, consists of effects and causes and effects. So any action in this universe can be traced, any action, any event, any occurrence in this universe can be traced back to an effect, and every effect, to a cause. I mean, any event, any action in the universe can be traced back to a cause, and every cause can be traced back to some other cause, because a thing is a cause and an effect together, and then it goes on. You can see it everywhere in the universe, from the most material, physical, to the most psychological. So the Buddha used a beautiful phrase for it in Sanskrit. I'm saying it in Sanskrit. Pratitya samutpanna. In English, I think that translates as codependent arising. Pratitya samutpanna. Everything is because of everything else, in a very simple way. So whatever happens because something has happened and something has not happened. Everything is because something has happened and something has not happened, and both have contributed to something happening and not happening, and so on and so forth. And this is an enormously complex web of causality, which this universe is. The Buddha said this universe is this web of causality. And this is karma. For me, that makes perfect sense. Very scientific, very logical. You look into any event, whether inner or outer. Outer event would be if I do something, if I take an action. Inner event would be a thought, a reaction inside. So you look into any event, inner or outer, you'll see a cause behind it. Then you look into the cause, and you'll see that cause itself is an effect of some other cause behind it, and so on, so forth. And you can actually keep going. I've done this exercise several times. You can keep going from one cause to another cause to another cause, seeing each cause as an effect and another cause. And purely as thought experiment, I've sometimes taken an event and gone to the beginning of the universe almost. In fact, I firmly believe that every single event can be taken to the beginning of the universe. There's nothing you can change in this cosmic web of causes and effects, because to change even one iota in this cosmic web, you'll have to change everything that is brought about that event, which means multiple lines of other causes and other effects, which are spread cosmically. So to change one little thing, you have to change the entire web. In fact, you cannot touch one strand of the web without shaking the whole web.
So let's do the thought experiment for our viewers. Let's say we are doing this podcast. This is an event.
It's an event, yes.
What's causing this? What caused that? What caused that? Let's take it back. Help, if you don't mind. I mean, would love to.
Interesting. Let's see.
Would love to make it real.
A pure physical event. Let me put it in a slightly different way. A pure physical event. I take a ball, tennis ball, and I toss it at the camera. And this is the cause. The effect would be to knock off the camera. Now this is simple, linear, simple. I throw the ball hits the camera drops. Now that dropping of the camera would have a psychological effect perhaps, because the person sitting next to the camera would get angry. Now he would express his anger as a reaction. That reaction will then become a cause for another effect and can lead to my reaction, and so on and so forth again. So at a very plain, at a very basic physical level, it's very simple, cause, effect. But if you take this is a complex event. We are doing a podcast on karma. It's a very complex event. Now, complex events don't have a straight, simple, linear cause-effect equation. So you can't say that at this plane, this podcast is happening at the physical plane. It is, of course, happening at a physical plane, but far more importantly, it is happening at a psychological plane. There's two individuals, Kunal and Partho, who want to do this podcast. Why do they want to do the podcast? So then you can have multiple reasons again, ranging from, I love doing podcasts, to I want to be heard and known, to I believe there are lots of YouTubers who do podcasts to gain, what do you call them? To viewership.
Become influencer or get money.
Views. Or get money. Some may do it to increase the circle of friends and influence them more and more. And there can be several layers of reasons why a person would like to do a podcast. So here, it's all very individual, because no one will know why Kunal actually wants to do this podcast or why Partho is actually doing this podcast. People may theorize, may have a few dots you connect and say, that's why they would be doing it. But no one will ever really know without getting into our heads why we are doing the podcast. For us to know why we are doing the podcast, we then have to get into our own heads and see the motivation behind it. And then you take hold of that motivation, and then you see what is causing that motivation, the cause of that motivation. And then, you keep going back again. So at no point is it very simple to say that, we are doing this particular event, or this particular event is happening because of this cause, because there are so many causes. There may be so many causes.
Got it.
So for us, if you really want to take this example, we are doing this to share our understanding of Sanatan Dharma, Vedanta. So that's the cause. But why do we want to do that? So at one level it's because we can do that.
Yeah.
Another level is we want to do that. Now, why do we want to do that? Because we feel for Sanatan Dharma. Why do we feel for Sanatan Dharma? Because we were born into Sanatan Dharma. There are only two ways you can come to Sanatan Dharma. Either you're born into it, or inwardly there's no conversion in Sanatan Dharma, but you convert yourself to it.
You come to it.
Inwardly, you come to it, you own it. Now, why do you own it? Because you can't say why you want, though you can, because you're talking about cosmic karma. So when you talk about cosmic karma, then this is a legitimate question. Why is Kunal born to Sanatan Dharma? And not to the Christian Dharma, or the Islamic religion? So there, of course, it's not easy to get into that, because then now you're talking about, the karma behind your incarnation.
Previous lives.
Yeah, so that is karma at another level altogether. So then again, there are multiple levels of karma, multiple layers, multiple levels, and if you really begin to understand how karma works, there are multiple dimensions of karma. So the two things that are most difficult for the human mind to unravel are dharma and karma.
Yes.
As the Mahabharata, for instance, tells you in so many words, that the two things that the human mind cannot fathom is dharma and the karma related with dharma. Why does this person do this and not this, and why does that person not do that and do this?
And somewhere it's a play of the Prakriti and your past lives and the rest of the universal web going on.
Again, multiple levels.
Levels and layers.
Prakriti is at one level,
Yes.
which is material. Just material and touching upon the psychological. So there's an overlap of material and psychological. But the moment you come to because almost every material event is influenced by psychological causes. Almost every material event are really effects of, human events. So I'm not talking about a storm in the seas or a fire in the forest. There, of course, there's no psychological component. But yeah, so that's Prakriti. But when it comes to the human karma, the plane of human karma, then it's always an overlap of material and psychological. So material, you can say, okay, Prakriti. But psychological, well, again, a more complex play of the gunas of Prakriti. But then there's something behind the gunas of Prakriti which is not really Prakriti, it's not so much material. But then there's a more complex and a subtler overlap with that which is Prakriti and yet not Prakriti. So I call that a quantum zone, which is neither Prakriti nor Purusha, but a quantum zone where it's indeterminate. The indeterminate overlapping of Prakriti and Purusha, where most human events really have their birth. That's the domain of the causes of most human events. And then, of course, if you go further behind, then you go into the realm of the Purusha, pure consciousness, Atma. There are no causes and effects, because now you're moved out of the
Object to the
causality web. So, where does one start? Where does one go?
And this, from Indian Sanatan Dharma perspective, this carries on from lifetimes, right? This carries on.
Yeah, but lifetimes again is very, very difficult concept. It's not something that you can very simply understand. You die here and you're reincarnated. There's a very simplistic understanding. Lifetimes is far more complex than that. Like what dies and what is born in us, what is being carried forth. People say that the sanskaras of one lifetime are born in another. Now, what are these sanskaras? If you really go deep into understanding sanskaras, you will know that sanskaras are not individual, not personal. though they come about through personal life and they manifest through personal life, but they're not by themselves personal. So sanskaras that move from one lifetime to another. So does that mean there's the individual that's moving from one lifetime to another? So our yoga very clearly states that reincarnation or rebirth makes sense only to one who has attained a degree of atmic consciousness, self-consciousness, or what we in our yogic terminology call the psychic consciousness. Because without that, at the moment of dying, things just fall apart. The mind falls apart into its universal elements. The prana, the vital, falls apart into the universal vital. The body goes back to universal elements, something like that. So, what exactly carries over? If a person has not touched the psychic at all in the lifetime, has had no consciousness of the Atma, is just mind and vital and body, at the moment of dying, all three fall apart and return to their cosmic elements. So what carries over? Who's born again? No one really. So now does rebirth apply to this person? So if you're talking about largely a person who's lived largely unconsciously on earth, hasn't lived a very conscious life, there's nothing in him or her to
carry on.
Everything will
So no karmas
will
or
flow back into cosmos.
abyss. So there would be no karmas or
No, but then there are certain things that again, this question of what are sanskaras then?
and sanskaras.
And if they're not individual, then how do these sanskaras, what's the word, transmigrate? How do they move from one life to another? Is that actually the person called Aditya reincarnate as Adil, retaining something of Aditya, or does Aditya completely fall into cosmic nature and disappears? And then an Adil is born there, has nothing to do with the Aditya there, because the individual, the personality, dissolves. So how does karma work then? So these are very difficult questions to answer. And much of it is just speculation and presumptions and theories, stuff like that.
But do our Maharishis and have Maharishis written about this?
So the thing is, with the Maharishis, the Maharishis changes. The Maharishis have what is called a Trikal Darshan.
Yes. Past,
or
present.
Trikal Gyan, knowledge of not past, present, future. Trikal Darshan is, again, very difficult to explain. Because, see, we experience our life in time. Time past, time present, time future. But reality is outside of time. I mean, reality is happening. Time is a component of reality. But there is a reality that is beyond space and time both. The reality of the consciousness, for instance, is not temporal. Consciousness does not live in time. Time lives in consciousness. Consciousness is beyond time. So when you realize yourself as consciousness, you have gone beyond time. Now, if you've gone beyond time, how do you see an event in past, present, future, in terms of past, present, future?
Yeah.
So, think of a flower that you're photographing at various stages of its development. So you'll have a bud, and you'll have this bud becoming a flower, and then you have a flower in full bloom, and then this flower withers. But in reality, is it really happening like that? A, B, C, D, like that? No. In reality, and this is, you're familiar with time-lapse photography. So if you were to do a time-lapse photography, long exposure time, and see this flower, you won't see it as this, and this. You'll see it as this. the bud opening up into a flower, the flower in full bloom, and the flower withers and falls to ground. It all happens together. In reality, what is happening? Isn't that what's happening?
Yes.
Nothing really happens like that in frames. It's always like this. Now, a rishi, a maharshi, has that consciousness in which everything is happening like that. So what does that maharshi see? The maharshi sees the entire universe, all forms, all lives in it, happening simultaneously. Now, how do you explain that to anyone? I mean, the human mind can't grasp it. You know, the human mind cannot live outside of time, even for a few seconds.
Right.
It's funny to say that,
Yeah.
living outside of time for a few seconds, but
Yeah.
the mind can't do that. It's not hardwired or soft-wired to do that. So the deeper you go, the more complex it gets, and there's a rabbit hole everywhere.
And does karma possibly impact our DNA genetics in some sense?
Again, this will require an understanding of what is DNA. How does DNA come about? DNA is a cell. It's in the cell, it's not a cell. You go inside the cell to find the DNA. It's the constituent of the cell. And if you really break up the DNA, these are molecules. It's a molecule, DNA, D-ribonucleic acid molecule. That molecule is made up, as you know, of quantum particles. Quantum particles, I mean, we still don't know what they really, you know, you can't break down quantum particles into something even smaller than quantum particles. Then they go into, you know, the
form.
There's fluctuations, quantum fluctuations, particles, quantum particles, popping into existence for times that we, you know, such small time that we can't grasp it at blank time, and disappearing. Not popping into existence and disappearing. These are fluctuations, quantum fluctuations. Now, if the DNA is reduced to this, then who's to say how DNA is formed and what is karma? Karma is related to consciousness. Now, where do you say that consciousness, the quantum ends and consciousness begins? And how do we know consciousness and quantum are not the same? How do we know anything for this? You know, we haven't gone that far yet. So if you go very deep into quantum reality itself, you will come to consciousness, because consciousness is, again, is the only thing that this universe is.
Yeah.
So if karma has to somehow manifest as a life, take a body on, you know, that's what we say, that the soul has taken on a body. How does the soul take on a body? Soul is pure consciousness. How does it take on a body except through DNA? What's a body? The body is finally reduced to DNA. Your cells, the body is just cells, and cells are DNA. Genetic sequence, you know, the genome sequences, which again is not even cells, or, you know, you can't,
Just fluctuations.
you can't break them down and, you know, study them as something discrete, something separate. It's part of a very, very complex, fluid, dynamic system. So how do we know, or how does one say that that is how consciousness manifests in the body or takes on a body? That the consciousness writes the DNA. Who else is writing the DNA? I mean, you can't say God writes the DNA. We're not talking about God here. Something is making the DNA form into a cell, which is forming into a body, which is becoming you and me. So where do we say this is where consciousness begins and where it ends? We can't. Consciousness, again, is a continuum. Matter, energy, this cosmos itself, everything is a consciousness continuum. So, how does one say anything at all? So if you ask me personally, I feel the basic DNA programming is being written by consciousness itself. If you take DNA to be the source code of the human body, Who's the programmer? Something is programming the source code, and that is consciousness. And how is consciousness? Why is consciousness doing this and not this? That's karma. But it's such a quantum, it's such a subtle quantum level there. I mean, quantum not in the quantum physics sense, like small, discrete, small. That's at such quantum levels. How consciousness is determining a life through body and mind is it can be known only through yoga, through yogic knowledge. And for yogic knowledge, as you know, there's no dimensions of big and small. The yogic knowledge is, again, identification with reality, with truth, with consciousness. So it's not big or small. Then there's no, cosmic and quantum. There is one reality expressing itself in the quantum as much in the cosmic, and simultaneously, seamlessly, non-dually. As above, that's what we say in the Vedas, as above, so below. So as in the cosmic, so in the quantum. As in the quantum, so in the cosmic. At that level, when you're in the consciousness itself, there are no divisions of this kind. One is becoming the other. And remember, simultaneity of time. There's no time there. It's simultaneity of existence. So now put it all together, the quantum, the cosmic, the simultaneity, a reality happening outside space-time, and then expressing itself through space-time. Put it all together, and you have an amazing reality that, of course, the mind will never get anywhere to, but it's an amazing reality.
Yeah.
Even brief glimpses of it will fire up your mind, the neurons of your brain. And then the neurons of the brain, I mean, if you go deep into the biochemistry and the biology and the physiology and the physics of the matter that we are, you will touch consciousness again and again and again. Because behind everything is consciousness, which is what our Maharishis have always said. That wherever, the Maharishis have said, wherever they have gone, if they've gone deep enough, they've come to consciousness.
Beautiful, Partho. I'm just trying to think of an analogy. It's like, let's say, these days there are virtual reality games, and they give you a headset. And then with that headset, you see the world in a way, which is very engaging, enriching, and very interesting in some sense. And that is your reality, as long as you have the headset on.
Right.
When you take it off, you realize that was not real. It's just a, same way our mind is also a limited headset of sorts, which is making us believe all this in space-time.
This is a matrix kind of
scenario. Yes, a matrix kind of a scenario. But yeah, very interesting to be in the world and try to...
Again, the matrix thing was derived so much from Hindu metaphysics.
Yeah.
Vedanta.
I never heard the creators of Matrix, the film writers, or how they came up with it. But did you hear that? Did they say this?
Yes. It's just on the net.
They would be. Okay.
They were deeply inspired by our metaphysics.
Good to know.
The Vedantic worldview.
Yeah. A lot of some great movie content from Hollywood has come from some of the deepest secrets and learnings of the Indian tradition, the Hindu tradition.
Indian mystical traditions, like the Matrix is very much inspired by the Indian mystical traditions and several other movies. But yes, I mean, the mystical tradition of any culture.
And such movies are always mind-bending because they're not meant for this mind. They're meant to show you that there is beyond mind.
Yes, these are beyond mind glimpses.
Yeah. Great. Great, Partho. I think that's very helpful. Understanding the karma and understanding what we don't understand or what we can't understand and just speculate. So,
the tantalizing glimpses of a reality the mind will never grasp. Unless we go deep into the yoga of consciousness.
Yeah.
So yes, that's is an interesting small talk.
I really wonder what effects would this karmic cause have now, the karmic podcast, on us and on anybody watching. But yeah, great. Thank you, Partho. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.